Love Quinn was Joe Goldberg's equal when it came to people that had held their own against him and had also shared and embodied the same twisted mindset as what he had. However, we did see that she did meet her own demise at the hands of Joe in the season 3 finale, with her emitting similar behaviours to Joe throughout the 20 episodes that she featured in, but on a drastically different side. I thought I'd take a look inside of her mind, analyse why she behaved the way that she did, and break down what was going on with her that led her to be who she was when we first met her. So let's get into it. Here is the analysing of Love Quinn's broken mind in You. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Let's start off by looking at her childhood. Love had a childhood that was one that was particularly interesting, and it was very different to how Joe was raised. Whilst Joe came from a family that was broken and wasn't necessarily the most well off, Love was raised in a household that was extremely wealthy and had both parents that were together. However, both Love and Joe ended up at the same destination in life, despite coming from different beginnings. Love's mother and father were extremely distant when it came to raising both herself and her brother 40, which tied into why Love and 40 had the extremely close relationship when they were older. However, due to the lack of presence of a role model in her mother and father being in her life at a young age, it meant that both herself and her brother were being cared for by an au pair called Sophia. Sophia was an individual who took advantage of her position and had a relationship with 40 when it was extremely inappropriate to do so. This led Love to take matters into her own hands and pave the way to start the murderous trait that we would see run through her right up until her final moments in life. Love killed Sophia and knocked out her brother and made him believe that he had killed her whilst in a blacked out state. I feel there were a couple of reasons as to why she did this at such a young age. One, because she saw that her brother was being taken advantage of and she didn't want him to be harmed. And secondly, it was so that she'd be able to keep her brother in her life, while also being able to stay in control of the codependent relationship that they had established. The actions that occurred on the day that Sophia was killed and the guilt that was put upon 40's shoulders was the day that Love took on the responsibility of being the person who looked out for him and cleared up his mess, something which we saw was still present right up until his final moments. She would rather do that than be alone in a world where she had to navigate by herself. So her childhood and early teenage years was a time where it really defined the character and paved the way for the woman that she would eventually become. She knew she also had the power to be able to cover things up and get away with things that not many other people would be able to do. Now let's take a look at a different time in her life where the similarities were extremely similar to how she treated her brother, but this time on a significant other. This was with her first marriage to James. She was happily in love with James throughout her early adult life, and this was until he got an illness. We as the audience were led to believe that James died due to his illness, but that wasn't in fact the case. It turned out that James went into remission from his illness, and once he was on the mend, he came to the realization that he didn't want to be with Love anymore, and that he instead wanted to do something different with his life. Again, like what we saw with her brother all of those years ago, and with the prospect of being left alone in that brief moment. But this time on a larger scale, she took matters into her own hands. What she initially planned on doing was poisoning James to the point where he was going to become paralyzed so that Love would be able to be with him. He wouldn't be able to escape, and she'd solely be the carer for him, giving her everything that she wanted. The attention, the care, and the feeling of being needed and not being alone. However, she wasn't able to give the correct dosage, and she actually ended up killing him instead. Showing that like when she was younger, she was prepared to kill for the sake of not being alone, and she didn't want to allow somebody else that she cared about to be able to go off and have happiness without her. Showing clear signs of dependency personality disorder, meaning she struggled to function without there being one particular person in her life that she was dependent on. Now let's take a look at her relationship with Joe, where due to his actions being brought to the forefront and an environment being created where she was able to be herself and there be no clear judgment, the real love then started to come through. When she was with Joe, we saw her essentially mirror his behaviors and become obsessed with him like we'd seen him get with many other women throughout the show. Love wanted nothing more than to be with him, and we saw that she was even prepared to kill in the name of love and to keep him safe. We actually saw her draw up a habit of hurting people and attempting to hurt them while she was in her marriage. She killed Delilah because she was going to go to the police about Joe. Then she killed Candace for the exact same reason, showing that she wasn't prepared to let him go to jail and she wanted to be with him that much. It was in season 3 of the show where we saw that she killed more out of jealousy and down to the fact that she didn't want Joe to be happy without her, similar to what we saw with James. For example, she killed Natalie because she believed that Joe was having an affair with her, and she stumbled across his box that he usually created once he found somebody that he was interested in. And she was also prepared to kill Marion at one point due to the fact that she believed that Joe was also having an affair with her too. However, she let her go due to believing that Marion was a good person, and that Joe made out that himself and her were separated at the time. Then there was the main one, which was Joe. She was prepared to kill him because she didn't want Joe to leave her and to be happy without him. She would rather watch him suffer and allow herself to suffer by being without him than allow him to go off and lead a better, more fulfilling life. But that obviously didn't happen. She ended up being outplayed by Joe and ultimately suffered the same death that her previous husband James did. Love was a character that craved attention, love, affection, and care from the people that she thought the most highly of in her life. Whether that be her brother 40, her first husband James, or her second husband Joe Goldberg. This most likely stemmed from the distance that was present within her childhood with her parents and the sense of neglect that she felt. It passed through and stayed with her all throughout her life until it got the better of her and she met her match. When Joe killed, most of the time he would have a plan in place and a reason as to why he was doing it. With Love, she was a bit more chaotic with her killings and she often leaned in on Joe to help pick up the pieces, which meant that Joe, a killer of 18 people, was disgusted by her actions at times, which I think says a lot. Love was a deeply troubled person that on the surface level portrayed a lovely, caring, kind woman who wanted the best for the person that she was with. However, if you ever threatened her idea of a perfect life, or you yourself wanted to walk away from it, a deadly consequence would be met, and the Love Quinn that was within her core would come to the forefront and provide a haunting, powerful, harrowing, and frightening side that we only ever got to see on certain occasions when her mask was down. Love was just as messed up as what Joe was, and she was a very dangerous individual. So, there you have it. Love Quinn's broken mind analysed in You. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What do you think of Love Quinn? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.